All right. Well, this is Brandon Helwig. I'm the publisher of UCFsports.com. And today I'm honored to be joined by Brandon Drumm, the co-publisher of OU Insider on the rivals.com network to preview this Saturday's game in Norman between the UCF Knights and Oklahoma Sooners. Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. This is awesome. I enjoy the new blood in the Big 12, and at the same time, unfortunately, we only get to be around you for months.
Right.
But welcome to the Big 12.
I appreciate that.
It's been a very what they've done with the Big 12, bringing in you all, Colorado, Arizona State, all that type of stuff. And I honestly wouldn't be shocked if you found an Oregon slipping into the Big 12 soon, all that. I think the new commissioner is the best.
Mark.
Oh.
Yeah, Brett Yormark. Yeah.
He's been a jerk to us in Texas. I mean,
yeah.
Hey, for you all, his aggressiveness, his confidence is such a stark different.
Yeah.
Than what Oklahoma fans, Texas fans, and everybody that's been in the Big 12 have been used to for years with commissioners. So you guys are coming in at the best time. You guys are a sleeping giant. I've told everybody that for a long time. The fact that you're going to have the Big 12 logo next to your name, Power 5 program now, UCF is a program to watch for years to come. And I believe that wholeheartedly. It's going to be rough. It always is when you first go from G5 to P5, having to play this tough of a schedule.
Yeah, UCF's learning about that right now.
Yeah, it's different. It is physical, the physicality, the strength, the speed, way different than what they've been used to. But this game's going to be fun Saturday. It's going to be a blast. There's a lot of good storylines, obviously. Dillon Gabriel, LeBlanc, all that. Like, there's some intermissions.
Yeah, there's some interesting element. Well, let me ask you, since you kind of brought up the new Big 12 at the onset, what is the view right now of this season of maybe the average Oklahoma fan about just this is the last season in the Big 12 going to the SEC? Obviously, this season has maybe surpassed expectations already, but how are Oklahoma fans kind of viewing this year? Is it just kind of like, oh man, we got to go through one more year of this, we can't wait for the SEC? What's kind of that dynamic like right now?
I
mean, are there any Oklahoma fans that kind of? I'm sure everyone's excited about the SEC, but is there any division at all?
No, everybody's SEC. The funny thing is like the Big 12 doesn't claim Oklahoma and Texas, even though they're in the conference. Right. And the SEC right now is going, those are our two. Look at them. They're really good. SEC. And it's hilarious. You got the SEC shorts guys every time. Did you see the SEC shorts video?
No, I have not seen the latest one. I'm familiar with them,
exactly
but I haven't
what we're just talking about. The SEC struggling. And at the very end, you have Big 12 and Texas. I guess the SEC, it's got a shirt on, and they're having to go through surgery because they're struggling. And every time you hear a heartbeat, it's like, oh no, Florida loses again. Oh, Alabama's struggling. All this type of stuff, like instead of in this stethoscope. And then, they go on, and at the end, they're like, we go prep for OR, emergency OR, and go get us something that will help. And they pan over, and they got the two actors in the Texas and OU jersey, and the nurse is talking to both of them. And they're like, okay, since you're on with this, we're going to have you come in a little early. And OU goes, well, quick question. We left the Big 12 thinking we weren't going to have to carry the conference like we have for 25 years. And now it looks like you're making us do that again. What's up? I don't know if we want to do this. And then the nurse opens up a briefcase full of money, and they both look at each other and go, we're in. So, I mean, but that's essentially what it is. Like they're already claiming Oklahoma and Texas, and the Big 12 is like, you know what? Colorado's ours, Arizona's ours. Look how good they are right now, And that is the fun dichotomy between all of this right now. And it's what makes college football great.
Yeah,
it is.
What, if anything, will Oklahoma fans miss about the Big 12, or will they miss anything at all?
Oh yeah, they'll miss Bedlam. I mean, OU fans will act like they won't miss it, man. That's such a fun rivalry. I know it's been one-sided, and OU has just owned Oklahoma State for 120 plus years, and it is the most lopsided rivalry in college football. You can look it up, but at the same time, a lot of those losses and wins on Oklahoma's side have been just nail biters and classics.
Yeah.
Just Oklahoma State has had the worst luck versus Oklahoma. They'll miss that. I would venture to guess they'll miss just kind of the cool trip. Morgantown's always a really cool trip. TCU, when y'all get to do that, that is a really neat deal. It's just a tailgating scene at TCU,
Yeah.
and the area that it's in Fort Worth is freaking beautiful. And I think OU fans, and this sounds really cocky and arrogant, I think they'll miss I don't want to say easy it was for them to win the Big 12. Out of 25 years they've been in it, 26, 27, something like that years, I think they've won 14. So they've won more than they've lost.
Probably won't be that easy in the SEC.
It will not be that easy in the SEC. And I think that's what they're going to miss the most. And the ironic part is Oklahoma's doing that when the Big 12 was the SEC. When Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, Texas, and that Big 12 South and Texas Tech were all top 5 teams year in and year out. And then on the north side, you had Kansas, who was a top 5, top 10 team for several years. You had Nebraska, who was in their heyday. You had Missouri, who had Daniels. Trying to think of all. They had 3 really good quarterbacks in a row that were just studs. And then K-State, always good in their heyday. So at one point it was really hard, and yet OU still won it more times than not. But at the end of the day, there's just a lot of history. And once you leave something, there's always buyer's remorse.
Right.
Always buyer's remorse. I don't know if you all felt that leaving the American.
Not really. I think the only thing, maybe there's the South Florida rivalry is maybe somewhat comparable to Bedlam in terms of, but then a lot of fans are just so happy to leave them behind, so they don't really care about the rivalry game. I
guess my question to you is then, how many away games have you guys got to do in the conference yet? And what's been what you've been looking forward the most to?
Well, that's interesting. UCF has played 2 road games, both in Kansas, at Kansas State and Kansas. I mean, I go to all the games, but it'll be interesting to see.
Manhattan's neat. I love that.
I'd been there before. That was a cool vibe, a cool atmosphere. Obviously, it's in the middle of nowhere. Kansas was Kansas. I know that there, I like Lawrence. Their stadium is going to be completely overhauled after this season. It was kind of it was a weird atmosphere. I think it's just a basketball fan base. It was just different. Like their video board is like 30 years old. Like the in-game atmosphere was not very great.
It's weak.
But
they're so far away from the field.
But it's you used to have a track around the stadium. But it'll be interesting to see how UCF fans, because every game's a long plane ride. But that's in the American, it was the same way except for USF, and this will be the most popular road game this year for UCF fans by a mile. There's a non-stop on Southwest that goes from Orlando to OKC, and it's going to be 100% full of UCF fans, probably Thursday, Friday, and Sunday.
So what time are you going to be? UCF fans, I'm inviting you guys. OU Insider, we have a tailgate on Lindsay Street.
Okay.
You'll see it, the big OU Insider tent. We'll be there. There'll be televisions. Game day will be on. They'll be cooking food.
Is that where they do the Walk of Champions?
And the Walk of Champions will be right there where we it walks right in front of us. They come right in front of us. They're shaking everybody's hands and all that. I pull the camera out and do photo ops for everybody. But outside of that, come join us.
Awesome.
Come join us.
Awesome. Everyone hates the 11 a.m. start. That's the only negative kind of about this. Yeah.
But you guys will enjoy it just because, again, like we were talking about off air, I think UCF fans are going to see that Oklahoma City's a lot like Orlando in size, literally in size. So where you're going to be is Norman is one of the furthest south suburbs. It's the second to last suburb Purcell is the first one on the south end. And then you go to Norman. And Norman's got about 150, 170,000, 200 plus probably with the university and all the school and the students and all that type of stuff. But you're going to like it. It's 15 miles from downtown. So if you're a UCF fan and you want to enjoy Oklahoma City and Norman, and you have a rental car, totally suggest you go stay downtown. Go enjoy Bricktown. Go enjoy Midtown, Deep Deuce, Deep Ellum. Deep Deuce, not Deep Ellum. Deep Ellum's in Dallas. Deep Deuce, Uptown, Midtown, Bricktown, and the Central Business District. Oklahoma City Thunder maybe playing a game Friday night. And if you really, really want to do it right, the Oklahoma City Zoo is one of the best things. If you have time, it's one of the top 10 zoos in the world. There's a big Remington Park. There's a big racetrack there and casino right across the street. You can go check out the Women's Softball Hall of Fame Stadium, which is right down the road. It's a 15,000 seat softball stadium. Really cool deal where they play the World Series every year.
Right.
And then you have the Kirkpatrick Science Center, which is awesome. Huge, one of the best science centers in the world right there, all in the Adventure District. Or Friday night, I suggest you go. I know Florida's like their high school football, but everybody will tell you haven't seen high school football unless you've gone to one in Texas and Oklahoma. Stadiums are gargantuan. The town's shut down. It is a whole other level of
what is the big team around Norman? What's like the high school power, or what's the big atmosphere, like the closest one to Norman in terms of a high school program?
Probably Mustang, Yukon are the stadiums that come to mind.
Okay.
Choctaw's a really neat atmosphere and really good football program. I mean, if you're there Thursday, go to Guthrie and go watch Carl Albert and Guthrie play. Guthrie has one of the oldest football stadiums in the United States. It's like rock stone, and then they call it the Rock for a reason.
Okay.
And it's so neat. So neat. So there's just a lot that for UCF fans, and again, downtown Oklahoma City is where it's at if you really want to have fun, the canal, all that type of stuff. And then game day, go hit up Campus Corner early, about 8:00. It'll be craziness, and then walk around. Come find us on the south end on Lindsay Street right before an hour and a half, 2 hours before kick. The Walk of Champion takes place, and the buses show up. Our tailgate will there. We'll have food for you all.
Awesome.
Y'all are all invited.
So, awesome. I'll take you up on that. So what is there around like if someone wants to kind of get the full Oklahoma Sooners experience, they're going to be in Norman. Is there like a Hall of Fame? Is there something people can go to on Friday? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, go to the Sam Noble Museum. Go to the Sam Noble Museum. There's big old T-Rex skeletons. It's a very eclectic museum, multicultural museum, very cool. A lot of people go there. It's one of the most underrated things you can do. And I don't know if you can get in to the Switzer Center.
Okay.
But try. It's on the south side. It is interactive. You press the buttons. It talks to you about like what this trophy's for the football team. And it's just, you got the Heisman trophies lined up everywhere. You got all the Jordan shoes. You got all the Big 12 trophies, the Nagurski Awards, the Walter Camp Awards, all the bowl trophies, all in that area. And it's like a historical walkthrough of Oklahoma. And then you got all the jerseys of like famous NFL and OU players. Really cool deal. And then Campus Corner. Campus Corner is where I would go. Like, what is Campus Corner?
Is that just kind of where all the action is, or kind of some shops or retail, or
shops,
what is
retail, restaurants, all that? Go to the Mont if you want. The Mont has it's just historical. I think it's got the swirl that's really cool. Just everybody goes to the Mont. The food's good. The atmosphere is good. The drinks are good. The Mont's a really cool place. Louis.
I'm looking at it right now. It looks like they have American and Mexican eatery with a popular landscaped patio.
Yep.
Okay.
So Yeah, just there's a lot you can do. I mean, maybe if you don't mind, I may go on your board and just say, hey, if you guys have questions about Norman, boom, and I'll just try to
that'd be great because this is going to be the biggest road trip all season for
Cool.
UCF fans. Actually, Boise will be number 2. A lot of fans went out to Boise. I was surprised because that's a long way from Florida. And there's
Boise's
probably
a cool area though, man.
Yeah.
It's a lot like Oklahoma City, where I think both of them are in the top 10 fastest growing metros in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's very, very just booming and very
Yeah.
nice. Everything's new.
Yeah.
Everything's
Yeah.
new.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this game and kind of where Oklahoma is right now. I guess maybe to kind of set the stage for, obviously Brent Venables in year 2. What was that transition like? Because Lincoln Riley, I think it just kind of came out of nowhere one day. He's going to USC. I kind of feel like OU fans always kind of had a love-hate relationship with him. They loved the success that he brought, but maybe they didn't like him personally. I don't know if that's the vibe I got. I don't follow OU on a daily basis.
You're pretty spot on. Yeah.
You can tell me if that's accurate or not, but I think a lot of people just kind of thought he was kind of like an arrogant prick and just didn't like him, but they liked the fact that he won, and he just kind of had this air about him that, you don't like him from an outsider's perspective. It's not a guy you really rooted for. Nothing against OU, just don't like Lincoln Riley, but just kind of what was the vibe? Venables obviously has the OU track record. He was with Stoops for a long time. It seemed like he was the top target. Am I right? To replace Lincoln?
No, we reported
I don't even think
the head coach 3 weeks before it happened. And then Dan Lanning made a run at it.
Okay.
Got a little dicey there at the end, but they finally settled on Venables. I think because Venables had it a little bit. I think he wanted it, but I think he had some guys he was waiting on to see if they would follow before he would take the job. And Lanning had it. I know for a fact Lanning had his staff lined up.
Yeah,
they were ready to rock. One of them was the Arizona State head coach. So and so that whole deal. It's kind of interesting how it all played out. As far as just the Riley situation, I don't like talking about him all that much because I think it's pointless. Look,
he's gone. I mean, he really didn't. I know
he's gone, and I think
he took some shots in some interview. I know a few weeks
ago. He
did
just recently made up some stuff. Whatever, do your thing, bro. Whatever he wants to do. The whole people tried to break into my home. There was no police records of that. He said he had to call the police. Zero public record knowledge of that. And the police, you have to, you ask for it. They have to give it to you. You can look it up. Nothing ever happened to that extent. Outside of just maybe being, I guess, paranoid. Would be the word I'm looking for.
Every coach is paranoid.
Yeah, well, no, he takes it to another level. Our man Parker had a video on top of the communication center, and the journalism school at Oklahoma is one of the top 5 in the country. Huge journalism school, big time. And he was facing the complete opposite direction, and they're screaming at him to take that thing down because they were afraid he was going to end up videoing whatever. And the reality of the situation is he wasn't. It's just Riley.
Wasn't there like a dorm? What's the story? There was a dorm that overlooked and he convinced them to fog the windows, right?
Well, that where our tailgate is, you'll be standing right by those exact dorms. Like they'll be right behind us, and you'll be in those lawns. So it's hilarious how paranoid he was. And then you have Venables, who's just like, whatever, dude. If you can stop my defense, you can stop it. If you can stop my offense, you can stop it. You seeing it, like what we're going to do. We know what you're going to do. There's no secrets here. At this point in the season, there are no secrets. 6 games into a season. I get it. If I get Riley's paranoia back in the day, game 1, game 2, game 3, once you get in the middle of the season, you are what you are, period. So there are no secrets. At the end of the day, as far as the fan base goes, I have to tell you, the OU fans have kind of dropped it, but the national media wants to keep bringing him back up. And so particularly because of they've kind of flipped as far as success goes this year. Yeah, I know they're 6-1 USC, but OU's looked dominant. And USC has struggled to be 6-1 because Caleb Williams is a one-man show right now because he has no help. And without Caleb Williams, without the best player in college football, they may be 2-4, 3-3 right now. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think that is the crazy part about it. As far as the Venables, like you asked, the Venables, the year 1, year 2, I had them 8-4, 9-3 this year.
Okay.
I was one of those people that was like, yeah, they brought in a really good class, number 4 class in the country. They brought in one of the top 10 transfer portals back-to-back season. So they've completely flipped the roster in a 12-month span. That said, 6-7 to what they are now is craziness.
Yeah.
Like we all didn't see it. We all thought there was a possibility they could be 5-0. We thought they would slip up against Texas and then kind of be up and down the rest of the season. Expectations have completely changed. Venables' culture has taken root earlier than we expected. We thought this year would be the year they make a jump, and then going into the SEC next year with them returning, dang near everybody is where they would be just boom, and they would be competing for the SEC title in year 1 and all that type of stuff. Well, they surprised us, and a lot of that has to go with that man behind you in that T-shirt and what he's done. I know UCF fans don't want to hear it. That dude has played. There's a reason why he's number 2 in the Heisman race.
Right.
Like that dude.
Tell us about. Obviously, UCF fans are very familiar with Dillon Gabriel. He came here. He started as a true freshman in 2019. Played in 2020. Played, I think, 3 games with Gus in 2021. Broke his collarbone on the last play of the game at Louisville. Got hurt. Sat out the rest of the season. And for UC, I was kind of telling you off air, this was the first year of really, NIL and the transfer portal, and it was brand new to a lot of people within the program, fan base. So he was the first kind of high profile guy to kind of do what a lot of guys do now. And I guess there was talk that maybe he could have returned from injury late in the season, but he didn't want to burn a red shirt, and so there was a lot of bad blood over his exit. And so, yeah, I think most UCF fans have gotten over that. But, we're seeing, and I was just watching highlights before we talked about that Texas game. That final drive was just a thing of beauty with him. Yeah. Tell us what's been the difference. I know he wasn't 100% last year. What has made Dillon Gabriel so good this year?
So I watched a lot of that ESPN where they were following UCF around during that. And I did it before this was during the season. And so I was kind of a Dillon Gabriel fan at that point, just because what you saw on that was a very team-oriented guy, a very loving teammate, a very caring teammate, and a teammate that everybody loved to be around. And I know UCF fans kind of hate the NIL aspect of what he became, and I get it. But we haven't seen that. As a matter of fact, he's been a very community-driven player, participant, very giving with his time, very giving with his teammates, very giving with anybody. And like I told you, there's a story with my kid where he signed my kid's cleats and then turned around and said, "Hey, I want you to sign my cleats too." And my kid, 7 years old, didn't understand what his signature is. He goes, "Well, then write your initials." So he helps him write his initials on it, on his cleats, and then wore them the rest of the season. And so that's the type of person we've seen. And he had some detractors, obviously. They didn't like the 6-7 season last year. And guess what? It wasn't Dillon Gabriel's fault they were 6-7. They lost 5 games by 6 points or less. 4 of the 5, and all 5 of them were last minute, by the way. Okay. Last minute losses.
And you see that a lot in the Big 12, right? That's any given week. Yeah.
4 of the 5, they had 4 straight losses by last second field goals.
Yeah.
4 straight. That's counting the bowl game versus Florida State. So it wasn't his fault. Anytime you score in the 30s and 40s, you should not lose. You should not lose. And on top of that, they had 11 drop passes for touchdowns or penalties brought back last year in those losses. So right there's your wins. Like they should have been 11-2. Instead, they're 6-7, and Dillon Gabriel's getting blamed for a lot of it. Can they do the defense? Is he a big game player? He hasn't showed up in big games. Well, yeah, he has. He just didn't win because the defense didn't help him.
Right.
I mean, you can't play the whole game. And I think those are where the detractors came from. And then you saw what happened against Texas, and everybody's like, okay, he has a defense. You know what? That guy, that number 8 might be pretty good. So I know that was a lot of the same stuff at UCF, right? Was he would show up against certain teams and not against others.
Yeah, that he didn't win a big game in his career, and he was still young. I mean, like something Cincinnati game people like to bring up in 2019, and he's I guess with Dillon, he has the opportunity. He beat Tulsa this year, which was a team that beat him. At UCF, he was able to beat Cincinnati. That was a place he didn't have much success in 2019.
Tour, and
and now it's UCF. Yeah,
well versed. He's on a redemption tour. He has not brought it up publicly, but I know people within the program that have brought it up, and the players and the coaches are well aware of it.
Yeah,
and they're wanting to win for him.
Yeah.
And against multiple teams, like that is what they're out to do. It's like,
and the one dynamic, it's not just Dillon Gabriel. There's this Jeff Lebby dynamic too.
Yeah.
Because he was the former offensive coordinator at UCF under Josh Heupel, and he interviewed, and there was a lot of people when Josh Heupel, that was a late coaching change. UCF's AD went to Tennessee. I don't know who he wanted to hire. He couldn't hire who he wanted to hire in Tennessee, so he went to Heupel and hired him, and that was late January, early February 2021. And so a lot of people at UCF were like, we got to hire Jeff Lebby as our next head coach. There was a lot of booster support, obviously a lot of player support, led by none other than Dillon Gabriel. They wanted Jeff Lebby to be the next head coach, and so there was a little bit of drama even back then. I remember when Lebby did not get the job. Dillon, he how people do these days. They removed all the pictures from Instagram that had him in UCF stuff. He edited his bio and all that stuff, and some people were like, "Oh no, he's got to leave now." But so there was obviously. There's that dynamic, because if you're Jeff Lebby, he probably wants to show UCF like, yeah, you hired Gus Malzahn, fine, but you should have hired me. Look at what my offense is doing. So there's going to be a lot of motivation from your quarterback and the offensive coordinator to do whatever they can to put numbers up on UCF.
Yeah, it's like we talked about. There's so many good storylines going on here. So many good storylines, and that's very uncommon for a team to come into the Big 12 and have such a close-knit amount of storylines with a long-standing program in said conference.
Yeah. How do people view Judge? Speaking of Jeff Lebby, how is he viewed? I know he's an original OU guy. I think he never really played. I think he got hurt maybe early in his career. I'm not sure he really ever played, right? But he went to OU, has all those ties. Now he's back. I know there was some controversy a few weeks ago with his father-in-law, Art Briles, but how is he viewed? I mean, people have to be pretty excited about the offense, and he always seemed like a guy that everyone liked when he was at UCF. So I'd imagine it would be pretty similar, right?
Yeah, they love him. They think, they want him to slow down sometimes, but you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Like you've got to.
That's what he does.
You have to take his offense for what it is. And I'm going to tell you, I think the one thing that he and Heupel have done with that Briles offense is they have expanded on it and made it very versatile in what they can do. It's not just, run, kind of option off of it, and now we're going to take a shot down the field. They don't take as many shots down the field as they used to. They try to hit you over the middle, lull you to sleep with a lot of curl routes, and then all of a sudden, bam, there it goes. So it's a different type of attack. There's a lot more pro style tendencies in it, and scheme, and I guess concepts is the word I'm looking for. There's a lot of pro style concepts within his offense now that wasn't there even last year. So, and I think that has a lot to do with the confidence in the players, the personnel being better, just the players understanding the offense better, and Lebby's willingness to adapt and change a little bit to help his offense grow. And it's worked out, hugely the way they attacked the perimeter with the passing game, with the position at the wide receiver that was one of the biggest question marks, if not the biggest question mark on the whole team coming into the season. The whole team. Everybody's like, oof, that wide receiver room doesn't look very good. They've lost so many. Marvin Mims didn't return. Other guys transferred out. They went and got some guys. They got a new wide receiver coach in Emmett Jones. And they went and got some guys. They brought in a bunch of stuff and good players. Some of the former recruits that were higher level returned and now are starting to show out because they're not injured. And everything's kind of fallen into place at that position. And if you asked me before the season if that was going to take place, nope. Yeah. I think they're going to struggle at wide receiver, which I think is going to make Dillon Gabriel struggle. That's why I had them at 8-3, 9-4. They're proving everybody wrong, including myself.
Yeah.
And we'll see on Saturday if they can continue that. This whole coming off of Texas, I think the good news is they got a week in between, right, to get out all the giddiness and excitement and all the national media. And they played into it. I mean, everybody saw it on Twitter, right, or X, whatever you want to call it. They played into it hugely, actually. This week, though, it's back to business. I talked to a couple of people within the program. They're like, the coaches and players were done with it on Monday after the game, and we're ready to move on and really start focusing on UCF, Kansas, Oklahoma State, all those, West Virginia. But the media team at OU and just the national and local media, they were not ready to move on because that was such a huge win for Venables. So we'll see if that plays into this. That is going to be one of the things I know most of the OU beat, including myself, are going to be watching closely is there going to be – is this a trap game, I guess, right after that Texas win?
Back to Dillon. Is he running the ball better, or is that's something that I don't know if I ever saw at UCF him? I mean, he's right up there with the top tier running backs in terms of net yardage this year. Is that a new wrinkle to the offense?
They have a backup quarterback.
I mean, so they feel like they're more emboldened to do that.
The backup quarterback, Jackson Arnold, was the top quarterback by a lot of people last year coming out of high school. Elite 11 champion, right? National Gatorade Player of the Year, Texas Player of the Year, 5-star quarterback, everything. The dude did it all. He's one of the greatest high school quarterbacks in Texas high school football history. And you bring him in. Last year they had Davis Bevel and General Booty as backups. Not exactly the pillar of depth. They had none. So they did not run Dillon much. As a matter of fact, the one time they did against TCU, got a concussion and he missed essentially 2 games.
Yeah.
So they were driving to tie the ball game up at that point, or not. I think to put it within 3, if I remember correctly. They were driving to put it within 3. He slides, gets a concussion, done. And OU went down the proverbial toilet after that the rest of the season. So they feel comfortable there because, 1, he's a good runner. He's such an underrated runner. 2, they have a backup that they feel, okay, if he gets nicked up, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
They're not going to fall off the cliff like they did last year. So they're going to be a lot more aggressive with his running. Now they just got to hope that he can stay healthy, which he has so far. Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood, knock on wood. So tell me about, Ted Roof, defensive coordinator. I know he's a longtime name in college football. He was at UCF for a cup of coffee. He was actually hired in December, I think 2011.
Wow, I did not realize that.
He left like 2 weeks later when I think Bill O'Brien got the job at Penn State. And he was at UCF like 2 weeks. He was gone, so he never really coached this season. But he's been around the block a few times in college football, and it was one of those hires that I think people just kind of were wondering about when they saw who Venables hired as DC. But obviously the defense has played really well. I know everyone knows about the offense, but I think the defense is also tops #1 scoring defense in the Big 12. So what's been the key? What's made the OU defense so good this year?
Depth. They use this phrase competitive depth, and they've used it all off season. They used it in the spring, and they've used it during the season, and it's true. Very true. They had no depth. You had guys playing. Stutzman was playing 100+ snaps a game. I think he averaged 90 snaps a game last year. That's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And you would see it. Oklahoma would be very good defensively for 3 quarters, sometimes 3.5 quarters. The last 7 minutes of a football game last year, if you go look at their plus minus and their efficiency, it was crap. Last 7 minutes.
You're talking about a Florida guy, Danny Stutzman from Windermere. He played at Foundation Academy, so he's a guy that's from the Orlando area.
Yeah, and he. You know what? Here's the thing: is that guy's up for the Butkus right now.
Yeah,
he's having a phenomenal season. He might be the best linebacker in college football right now. Statistically, it's hard to argue. And how he's performed in big games, obviously, is very hard to argue. That said, he had no legs. This year, they have guys that they bring in. They have guys that they'll bring in for, a series, give him a break for a series. And that one series a game makes a massive difference, because what if that one series is 14 plays and OU stops him for a field goal? Okay, well, he's been off the field for 6-7 minutes, Gatorade, hydrating, electrolyting up, and now he's able to go perform the rest of the game. And they're like that at every position on defense. And that has been the complete difference. Obviously, talent.
Right.
They brought in Dejon Terry. They brought in Rondell Bothroyd. Obviously, Dejon Terry from Tennessee Volunteers was one of their top defensive tackles last year. He's one of OU's top defensive tackles this year. Rondell Bothroyd, 2-time All-ACC defensive end, has had 15 sacks in the last 2 seasons. Brought in Trace Ford, who was one of the best pass rushers for Oklahoma State, mind you.
Yeah.
And he came over to Oklahoma. Trying to think who else they've brought in as far as transfer portal goes on defense. A lot. Just a lot. And then the recruiting, obviously, PJ Adabara, and then you've got Kip Lewis at linebacker, who's played really well. You've got R. Mason Thomas at defensive end. Trying to think of Peyton Bowen at safety. Like Gentry Williams at corner. Gentry Williams is one of the top corners in the country. He's up for the Jim Thorpe Award. I think he's second in the nation in interceptions. So just a complete change in mentality, and then depth. I think once all that takes place, the guys start to understand the scheme a lot better, because Venables' scheme is complex and it's deep, and nothing is ever the same. The terminology changes quite a bit. And now that the players understand that, and they've become more film junkies, where they stay in and watch film, they're in meetings all the time with coaches. They'll do individual meetings, going in and asking, okay, what do I do here, here, here? It's just a buy-in, a total buy-in. You add that with competitive depth, and you're seeing the success on the field right now.
Yeah, I know we've talked about a few names, obviously Dillon Gabriel first and foremost, but just offensively, who would you name as a player or two to watch that obviously is going to play a big role in the game on Saturday? Who are some of the guys, either it's been the running backs or receivers? Who's a guy to watch on Saturday?
Jalil Farouk, wide receiver for OU. I would actually say Jalil Farouk, Drake Stoops, obviously, Nick Anderson, who's filling in for Andrell Anthony. Nick Anderson, I believe.
Yeah, the game-winning touchdown, right, from Dillon and Red River.
Got 6 touchdowns in 6 games, or 6 or 7 touchdowns in as many games, and he's a big play waiting to happen. So Oklahoma got lucky to have him as a backup for Andrell Anthony, who's out for the year now. And then obviously tight end, you got Austin Stogner, who they didn't really use to start the season, but in the last few games that they've had their biggest output offensively, they've really focused on targeting him 3, 4, 5 times a game to make sure that, the defense has to account for that big burly tight end across the middle. And it's opened up the perimeter a ton for Oklahoma even more. And then at running back, Marcus Major, Tawi Walker, Gavin Sawchuk will be the guys that you'll see toting the rock. The run game has been a little dicey. Dillon Gabriel has been the best rusher. So we'll see if that's one thing that I think
that's UCF's Achilles heel. They have not shown they can stop the run at all. Gave up 399 rushing yards to Kansas the other week. So that's the thing that we're all waiting to see is the bye week. What changes have they made schematically? There's talk that they moved positions around of some guys. So we're anxious to see, because if you're OU and you've seen what happened in the first 3, you don't even really need to throw the ball. Just run it every down. That's what Kansas did. And UCF could not stop it. So.
Well, OU's struggling to run the ball, so it's gonna be a fun battle to see who does what that game.
Yeah, and then on the other side, I know you name dropped a few people a minute ago, but who were like one or two of the guys? Who were the guys on that side that would be a player to watch defensively?
Ethan Downs.
Ethan Downs. He's a sack leader, right?
Yeah, he's been unbelievable this year.
Defensive end, yeah.
He had 12 tackles for losses last year. Was second team All Big 12, and people still hated on him. Whatever. I mean, OU fans, they're spoiled. They are. They're spoiled.
He's an Oklahoma guy. He's from the state of Oklahoma.
He's an Oklahoma guy, loves OU his whole life. That's what he wanted to do. And he's coming up big. He's starting to really get a lot of attention from pro scouts. He's starting to really show out now. I think he'll return just because he loves OU. He's that type. I think him, Stutzman, Billy Bowman, as long as they're not first rounders, I really believe that they're going to want to come because they just love the university. It's who they are. And so Oklahoma got lucky in that aspect. Billy Bowman at safety is a name to watch. Woody Washington, everybody's, Gentry Williams is up for the Jim Thorpe, but the funny part is the one that all the NFL scouts have been talking about for years is Woody Washington. Well, everybody comes in, they want to challenge Gentry, and they don't want to throw at Woody. Well, OU now has 2 corners. It's just like pick your poison. Which guy do you want to, go after? Jaron Kanik, the Mike linebacker for Oklahoma, is a 6'2", 240-pound linebacker that runs a 4.3 laser time 40, legit 4.3 40. Track superstar, all that. And if R. Mason Thomas can become healthy on the edge, that's going to be big because between him, Ethan Downs, Bothroyd, Trace Ford, and PJ Adebawara, those 5 guys, 6 guys make OU. They might have the deepest defensive end room in the country. And then when you add what they've started to do at the defensive tackle spot, it still has some growth and some they need to add, and they are through recruiting. Got a couple 5-star, 4-stars coming in, but that edge for Oklahoma is what is big as far as why they get so much pressure. Yeah, because they are very, very hard to pass block against on the edge.
Yeah. What do you expect in terms of atmosphere for an 11 a.m. game? Is that
it'll be good?
It'll still be. It won't be any different. People are just kind of sluggish to get in there, or just kind of like selling their tickets now because it's 11. That's how UCF fans will be for like a new game. They hate them.
Nope. OU's number 6 in the country. They just beat Texas. This is the first time the fans get to cheer for them after that big game against Texas. So there's a lot of pent up energy. These tickets, I can tell you what they're going for right now. As a matter of fact. Because we normally give away a few tickets on our site. They're going for $65, $90 a piece right now for not the best seats in the house, but decent seats. So they're pricey. I mean, just a good 50-yard line seats almost $200.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Have you been to most of the Big 12 venues for games?
been
Have
to
you
all of
seen?
them. I've
You've
been
been
to
all
all
of
of
them.
them.
So
Yep.
you've got great perspective.
Yep.
Maybe you're biased. That's fine. Who would you say has the best atmosphere in the Big 12? Is it OU or
No.
where would OU
No.
rank?
No. They would rank 2 or 3.
Okay.
K-State's up there. Just big game atmosphere, K-State. I don't know
Right.
the other, but their big game atmosphere, that it only holds like 55,000, but it is loud and it's on top of you. So,
Right.
and I think that's what you're going to notice about Oklahoma is the fans. When you get there, you're going to see just how little room there is between the field and the stadium, and the fans are on top of you. Like everything comes down on top of you. So it does get really loud on the field. But OU fans have been known to be quiet at times just because of the spoiledness, the expectations.
Yeah.
And I think they get bored sometimes with I think UCF coming in is going to add a new flair to it. But when you go up against Baylor, K-State, Kansas, TCU every year, it gets old and monotonous and all that. And I think that's what's going to change the atmosphere when they go to the SEC, because Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, they're going to be coming in with these big names. And so everybody's going to be a lot more hyped. It's going to have a lot more, I guess, kick to it.
Right.
And that's what I think UCF kind of brings, a little extra kick to it with some of the backstories. And it's a new blood coming in to Norman. So I think you guys are going to get, for an 11 a.m. kick, you're going to get a pretty good atmosphere and one you guys will love.
Yeah. Last thing, I don't know if you're a guy that does score predictions or if you've even thought about it yet, but like, what's your thought process of this week? What will go into that if you do make a score prediction, or if you already have one? Are you wondering about, like you said before, getting too high after that win, coming off a bye week? Are you thinking, UCF maybe is going to show a little bit more than they have, especially if John Rice Plumlee is healthier? I know the UCF defense has not looked good. I know UCF fans they're kind of wondering what this game will look like. I think the line opened at, was it 18 or something like that? I think
I haven't even looked at the line.
Yeah, I think the line opened at 18 or something like that. But what are your expectations for the results on Saturday?
I'm interested to see John Rice Plumlee, and I can't remember y'all's backup's last name.
Timmy McClain.
McClain, yep. Oh, he's exciting too. You guys have, so if there's Achilles heel to anything that Venables does defensively, it's a running quarterback and a guy that's very mobile and can get out of the pocket and cause a lot of his scheme to kind of crap the bed, if you will. And if McClain or Plumlee, whoever's in there, can do that and use their legs to get Oklahoma on their heels. Now, I will say this. It hasn't been an Achilles heel this year because their linebackers, with Deshaun McCall at Cheetah, Stutzman and Kanik being just, all three of those dudes are blazers as far as speed goes and athleticism. I think that changes up a lot of what's been the problem for Oklahoma over the years. Is Venables has always preferred a very smart linebacker over athleticism. He loves guys that are just going to do their job, be where he tells them to be, because his defense is very, if you false step this way, you can cause a problem and open up a hole. Everything has to be perfect with how he calls things. So when you have guys that are as athletic as those three, they make up for mistakes a lot. So I think over the years, an athletic quarterback has been a problem with Venables' defense. Clemson, and even when he was at Oklahoma before he left for Clemson, I feel like those two quarterbacks can cause a problem. I feel like if they do get to that point, and Plumlee, McClain are getting Oklahoma on their heels, that's going to open up so many other things as far as busted coverages on the back end, all types of things. And we've all seen Plumlee he's really good at keeping his eyes down the field and hitting those things and making big plays for UCF over the years. I don't, OU's covered every game this year.
Yeah.
I want to say that. So I want to make this clear. I think they cover, but I think they backdoor it. If
Okay.
you will. I think this is a close ball game for about 2.5 quarters. And when I say close, maybe a 10-point game, 14-point game. Like, you know, UCF is always within striking distance of making it really good.
Yeah, the only game they were effectively out of was Kansas. You know, they had to leave in the second half at K-State. It was a one-possession game in the fourth quarter, and then Baylor was just when. Now we've seen a lot of epic collapses since that Baylor game. Colorado Stanford, and then Boise, Colorado State on Saturday. Those might have been even worse. I didn't think it could get worse than UCF's collapse, but maybe there's a couple that might give it a run. But
yeah, I would say probably I'm going to go 45. 21 Oklahoma.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I have no idea. I just know that Dillon Gabriel and Jeff Lebby will want to do everything possible to score as many points on UCF. And if there's an opportunity to pat on the points late in the game, I don't think they're going to turn it down. Put it that way. So
Oklahoma's 7th in scoring defense too. So I don't 21 seems like a lot even to me.
Yeah.
Right now, that's really weird for me to say. I've been covering Oklahoma long enough to know that 21, like what Oklahoma's doing defensively right now is like a foreign language to all of us. This is not hard for us to wrap our heads around, to be number 7 in scoring defense, top 50 overall defense, yards. They're going to give up yards. That's what OU does. They bend, don't break, and then they make a play on special teams. They cause a turnover. They force you to make mistakes. I think they're the number 1 in the nation as far as the plus minus turnover margin, all that stuff. So that's where I think UCF will get their yards. I just don't know if they're going to be able to get in the end zone.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out in a couple of days here on 12 noon Eastern on ABC. Well, Brandon, I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the conversation, learning more about OU and Dillon Gabriel, obviously getting reacquainted with and everything. And yeah, we'll see what happens this weekend. You know, I wish OU best of luck the rest of the season. I think the Big 12 would hope that someone else emerges, you know, other than maybe OU Texas, at least have another team in that championship. So we'll see how things fare the rest of the way. Well, thank you very much, and hopefully some UCF fans will hit up that tailgate. Which street is that on again? It's
Lindsay.
On
It'll be on Lindsay Street.
Lindsay Street.
Yep. I'll put a pin out on my Twitter at B Drum Rivals.
Okay.
So if y'all follow me, I'll put a pin out leading up to it so that you guys can come and join. And I know I'll see you on Saturday. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And I'll see you in the press box on Saturday.
Yes, sir. See y'all.